Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. So tonight I just wanted to talk a little bit about what factors actually affect your survival. And this is kind of a follow-up video to a video that I did a little while ago called Stop Prepping If You're Fat. And it was kind of that video was kind of addressing kind of a trend that I'd been seeing in the community of people kind of saying that, if you're not super fit, then you can't survive. And so I thought tonight I would take a little bit of time and just go into it's a survival prepping and chat, so we can kind of interact with the audience, but also talk about what those factors really are. So hey, T-Stark 1216 and Yankees Outdoor Adventure, hello. So if you guys have any questions, or would like me to be able to read the comment or kind of draw attention to it, then if you can put it in all caps, then that really helps me kind of pick out, when folks are asking questions in the chat. So, okay, I made a few notes here. I was just sitting around the office and I was kind of like, had some free time, and I was thinking, hey, John Lord, and I thought, well, let me just write down some kind of primary factors, that are kind of more broad and wide ranging. And then I also put down some more specific ones that are kind of contributing factors that I think could make a difference in how you can survive as well. So, hey, Jordan Wright, thanks for joining. Okay, so the first thing is, when we're talking about survival situations, I'm talking about general survival situations right now. I'm not going to put any kind of caveat to it, because any of these could affect your ability to survive in a wilderness situation or in a without rule of law situation, or whatever the case may be. It really could be anything. So that's kind of what we're gonna get going on here in a minute. Let me see if I can catch up in the chat here. Yoda's survival and off-road. Hello. How is the smoke in my area? I don't think there's any smoke in my area. I don't know. Is there a forest fire or something that I'm not aware of, or grass fire or something like that? Let's see. Backlash 1000 right away. He says, what do you think about the newest North Korea missile test and how should it affect prepping? So I still haven't really changed a whole lot on the North Korea thing. I think actually what's going to end up happening is we are just going to have to learn to live with a nuclear armed North Korea. I don't like that answer, but it's either that or we're going to war again. I don't know. I'm not worried about a strike hitting the U.S. I'm not concerned about them taking a ship and launching it up and doing an EMP and that kind of thing. There are a lot of defensive measures that we have, and that it just makes me not really worry about it too much. And I guess that's kind of all I can really say on that. So I sleep pretty comfortable at night, and I don't really worry about nuclear exchanges. It's always a possibility. But I think the biggest deterrent is that, we've got mutually assured destruction, and they know if they attack us, then they're going to end. They're going to be ended. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at that. Let's see here. Richard, he says, your channel actually affects my survival by improving it. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. Let's see. Oh, Yoda says Casper is completely covered by a blanket of smoke. Dang, I didn't know that. I should probably be paying attention to that. I'm down in Cheyenne, or just north of Cheyenne, and haven't noticed anything today, but I've been outside working all day. I was building some dog houses for the 2 new dogs that we got. So, all right, so let me go ahead and get into this, just that way I can get through them before we all get finished. So, and this is not necessarily in any particular order, okay? All these things are just factors. And if these factors come up in such a way that, they could be the most important factor at one given time, and some other factor may not be as important because of whatever the situation is. So again, we're speaking in generalities. The number one, though, on my list that came to mind is your will to survive. And this one pretty much always is going to be there. If you give up and you're not willing to try, then there's a lot of situations that you could have made it through that you're probably not going to make it through. I have read incredible stories of survival back when I was teaching at the Fairchild Air Force Base, the Air Force Survival School, and some amazing stories of guys who, by all accounts should never have been able to survive through their situation, but they did, and they were able to do it. So your will to survive, and you having that mindset to where you're like, I am going to get through this. That is a huge primary factor in your ability to survive. The next thing, and it's similar, but it's different, is your knowledge of how to survive. Okay. Knowing how to build fire, knowing where to find wild edibles, knowing how to find water, all those kinds of things are really, really important. And they are going to make a huge difference in your ability to get through a situation. And that can be in an urban situation, it can be in a rural area, or it could be in a wilderness setting. It doesn't make any difference, because if you understand those basic survival, priorities, and you know how to affect your own survival because of the knowledge you have, then you're going to be good to go. Not necessarily good to go. It's just one of the factors, The other one that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is your geographical location. That's a big one. That makes a big difference depending on what the scenario is. No power, and you're living out in the desert or in Southern California right now. I think John Lord was just saying it was what did he say, 114 today out there where he is. If you don't have power, it's going to be difficult to keep a climate control and that kind of thing, so that you can actually stay cool and that kind of stuff. But the same thing goes for the Arctic. People who live up in colder zones, up in north and all that kind of thing throughout the winter, that's a huge factor in your ability to survive. So another one, and this is kind of combined with the last one, is the weather and the time of year. If it's cold and rainy, or if it's windy, or whatever the case may be. Out here where I'm at, the first probably month of the year in January, February, it's pretty common to see 60, 70 mile an hour winds down around 30 degrees or less. So, if you're out exposed in that kind of weather, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to be in a hurting situation. So that's a huge factor. So let me catch up on the chat here real quick. Like I said, if you guys got anything you want me to read, or you want questions answered, then please try to put them in all caps. I appreciate that. All right. Savage Survival says, look at POWs. They're a tough breed and a hell of a will to survive. And that's a lot of those stories I'm talking about are, prisoner of war, or, people who were missing in action and stuff like that. I mean, there are some really amazing stories, and you just can't even believe them until you read them sometimes. So, and Savage Survival, I would agree with your comment where you said experience trumps knowledge. Yeah, it's very important to go out and actually practice the stuff that you learn. If you just have it in your head, that doesn't do a whole lot for you. I mean, it's better than nothing, and it is still a contributing, a primary factor. But actually knowing how to do it, and use those skills, and having experience at them is way more important. Let's see here. T-Stark 1216. Do you have an EDC multi-tool that you like? I do, and unfortunately I just got out of the shower, so I don't have it on me. It's the little Leatherman. I forget the name of it right now. It's a little small Leatherman. Folds up. It's blue and silver. I can't remember the name of it, but that's the one I like. If anybody comes down here while I'm doing this, I'll have them go grab it for me, and I'll show you later on. James Murphy says, Cheyenne, you're prepping for the Yellowstone supervolcano? No, I'm not, because if that goes off, there is no prepping for it. It's an extinction level event, and we're all going to be done for. So it doesn't really matter, and we're so close that it's it wouldn't make a difference. Let's see. And to me, just so you guys know where I come on that kind of thing, is that huge events, extinction level events like that, is something that I kind of put in God's hands. I'm a Christian. I believe in God, and if He wants to see everything destroyed, then stuff like that's going to happen. There's nothing that we can do. Or if a comet or something is going to hit us and destroy the planet, well then there's nothing you can really do about stuff like that. But I'm more of an 80-20 prepper, where 80% of it is for regular power outages, snowstorms, ice storms, forest fires, tornadoes, those kinds of things, regional weather, small regional events. And then 20% of the, nationwide grid down scenario, EMP, crazy kind of stuff like that, So I try to put 80% into staying towards reality, and then the 20% of the stuff that's very low probability on the scale. So, Dad on YouTube says, how's your jiu-jitsu doing? Are your kids training? So we've been training here. Unfortunately, we had an issue at our gym, and the owner of the gym ended up closing his portion of it. So we haven't been able to do it right now, but we're kind of searching for another gym or something like that. So that's in the works, I should say. But we still spar and stuff here at the house and watch YouTube videos, practice techniques, and different things like that. Let's see. Okay. So the next one that it's a huge factor, and a primary factor, in my opinion, is your proximity to hostilities. So, the closer you are to combat, the closer you are to where there's open people, shooting and that kind of stuff, that directly affects your ability to survive. If you're close to a city center, you're going to have a harder time surviving just because of the number of hostile people in your area, or the potential for hostile people in your area, than somebody who's further out in a rural area. By the same token, if you're in a combat situation, the closer you are to the front lines or whatever, then the more dangerous it's going to be. It's just a primary factor that affects your ability to survive. So let me see here. Who's your archer? I can see this. Yes. VTX Rudy, population growth control is must-watch Inferno movie. Yeah, so I'm personally not worried about population growth. The reason I say that is because you can fit every person on the whole planet on the island of Hawaii, the big island. So it really doesn't bother me at all. You can... let's see, if you give people, if I remember this quote right, and don't correct me if I'm wrong, you can fit every person on the planet in Texas and give them the amount of living space that they have per person in Paris, just in the state of Texas alone. So overpopulation is a complete myth, in my opinion. I really don't think that it's anything that we have to worry about. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that's my opinion, because it's not something that I personally worry about. Jimmy Rant says, what is the difference between a prepper and a hoarder? So I think there's a huge difference. Hey, Jarhead. I think there is a huge difference between a prepper and a hoarder. A hoarder is somebody who has a disorder, a mental disorder, and they collect a bunch of worthless crap, basically. A prepper is somebody who is a responsible citizen who is, putting back a little bit of food and a little bit of water and some extra gear in order to take care of their family, because it's their responsibility as a citizen. So I don't see them even close to being in the same category at all. Backlash 1000 says, what's the smallest amount of land a prepper should own? You know, you can do everything you need to on 2 acres if it's the right 2 acres. You know, if it's placed in the right place and you've got water to it and all that kind of stuff, you can be completely self-sufficient on as low as 2 acres. That obviously, the bigger a piece of land is, then the better that's going to be. But yeah. So, hello, Rebecca Hammond. And let's see who else joined here. I think that's it. Oh, sorry, Hoosier Archer. If you put them in all caps, then I will try to call them out. If it's not in all caps, it's just really hard for me to read all of them at once. So if you want to re-put them in caps, I'll try to catch them for you. Okay, let's see. The next thing is access to food. Now, this is just a general statement about having access to food affecting your ability to survive. But you can combine this with other things such as, you know, the geographical ones and stuff like that. Some environments are very resource rich where you have a lot of things to eat and, you know, it's not a problem. Like being in Florida is totally different than being in, say, Utah, somewhere out in the desert, you know. So access to food is another one. Access to clean water and sanitation. That is another factor that affects your survival. When you look at third world countries who don't have clean water and don't have sanitation, they have really high death rates because of different events or different, you know, diseases and things like that that affect people. Even when they have electricity, you know, they still may not have clean water and good sanitation. So that's a major one. Another one, and a lot of people will think that this is kind of crazy, but access to electricity and power. That is a huge factor. Hey, Doc Ops 1, how are you? Access to power, having the ability to do climate control, to stay in a climate controlled area is a massive factor in your ability to survive. It just is. There's no coincidence that countries that have had electricity, you know, their survival rates go way up. Hey, Xander or Tanner, hey, go up and grab my Leatherman, the one that's in my drawer, the one I carry, my EDC multi-tool. Go grab that real quick, would you?
Which one, the multi-tool?
Yeah, the blue and silver one. Yeah.
I'm done.
What?
I'm done.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. Big bubbles, no troubles. Hey, Hugo, how are you? Let's see. Okay, so I think we're. Yeah, no problem, Jimmy. All right, I think I got caught up there. So, so the next thing, and again, these are all the primary ones, is your ability to rely on other people, your friends, family, neighbors, groups, those kinds of things. Areas, you know, look at small clans, tribes, those kinds of things. Those kinds of things all happen naturally in the third world and second world, and even in our own world, in the first world, because we need people. You know, the people who say that they're going to go live in the woods alone and, you know, be the lone wolf and all that, that's only going to last so long. It really can't last that long. So they can think what they want, and maybe they can stay out long enough to let hostilities, you know, pass. But there we go. Thank you. Okay, here, I forget who it was, asked a question about my everyday carry. It's the Leatherman Juice CS4. As you can see, it's pretty beat up. So I carry it in my pocket with my keys and stuff like that. I changed from carrying the Victorinox Silver Alox Farmer to carrying this because it's not a whole lot bigger, but it offers a whole lot more capability. So it's got several different flat blades, and sorry, I'm stopping right in the middle of this. It's got a good, this is one I like because it's one that I use a lot. It's got a good Phillips head tip on it. And what else do we got on here? We got that, which I don't ever use. Got a can opener. And we've got a set of scissors, which I haven't used a lot, but they're good scissors. And got a good blade. Pretty sharp. I haven't sharpened it since I got it. It's just whatever it had on it. And then we've got a good awl for digging, you know, boring through wood and stuff. And it's got the needle hole on it too, so you could use it for like sewing leather and stuff. And then we have the last one is a saw. So a saw is something that I always want on my multi-tool because it just helps a lot. And that's it. So this is, oh, sorry. This is the Leatherman Juice CS4. That's what I carry my EDC multi-tool. I love it. I've had it for, I don't know, maybe 6 months now, and it's just done great. I use it all the time. And the needle, the pliers they have a good wire cutter in them, and they've got a hardened wire cutter back there at the end. And they go down to where, I mean, you can pull splinters with them. You know, they're almost like, you know, needle nose kind of deal. So pretty cool. Okay. Alrighty. So ability, we'll go back to this list here. Sorry, this is kind of in and out because I'm doing the chat at the same time. But hey, the Smoking Ape, what's going on, man? The ability to rely on other people is an important factor. The next one is access to medication and medical services. You know, having doctors in the area, dentists and those kind of things, that's a huge factor that it really increases your ability to stay alive longer in a bad situation. I mean, personally, I would love to find a doctor here in the area that's into prepping and survival because I'd love to make them a part of my group. Okay, and then this is the last one. And this is the last of the primary factors. I have a few more contributing factors, but this is the last of the primary ones. And the last one is your ability to reorganize and rebuild a community, okay? You know, you can only do it, and I touched on this a minute ago, you can only do it for so long by yourself. You can only do it with your group for so long. You have to start reorganizing and you have to start rebuilding. And that's one of the things that I've kind of wanted to start touching on a little bit more on a channel and just kind of start breaking down and working through the thought process of how do you rebuild? What are the things that you do after a major event, you know, without rule of law or a nationwide grid down situation? What do you do first? You know, what are your priorities and those kind of things? So I'm hoping to do a little bit of research and think through some of those things and hopefully be doing some videos on that here pretty quick. So let me see if I missed anything. If I did miss something and you would like me to get it, just put it in all caps and I'll try to do it. Jordan Wright says, what's your opinion on using fish antibiotics? So I have done a video on fish antibiotics in the past. You could go check that out. I do like them. I think that they are good to use. Doc Bones and Nurse Amy, doomandbloom.net, have a lot of good resources about fish antibiotics on their channel, and I would recommend that you check them out. Also in his book, he talks about them too. It talks about, you know, some dosages and different ones to use, different ones to stock up on and all that kind of stuff. He's got a lot of good information there. And so I do advocate having some. I think I have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different bottles of different kinds, you know. So my thought process when I was buying fish antibiotics was to try to buy, you know, a few doses of the different kinds, because there are different kinds of antibiotics for different kinds of infections. So I did a little bit of work and looked to see which antibiotics treated which kinds of illnesses, and then tried to get the broadest spectrum of antibiotics to keep. And so, yeah, you can check out that video and it's got them all listed there. Okay, let's see. Buffy Woe. Ham radio, best way to hook up with same prepared folks. Absolutely, yeah, and I think I've got that down here as a contributing factor. Is your ability to communicate and gather intelligence. You know, that's a huge deal. It's really important. So with that, we'll go ahead and kick off some of the other ones. Your health. This is a contributing factor. Do you have any injuries? Do you have any illnesses? Do you have any disabilities? Do you have any long-term, diseases that are going to affect your ability to do stuff? Diabetes or other things like that. That is a big contributing factor. All right. So this is kind of what we were talking a little bit about earlier. I said on my list here, I had your ability to perform basic survival-related skills and tasks, fire building, shelter, building, and navigation. And basically what I'm talking here is your experience in doing those things, kind of like we were mentioning earlier. Not just having the knowledge, but actually, having done them. Okay, so the next one is fitness level. It's really helpful to have a general functional level of fitness. And what I mean by this is something that I talked in that video the other day that I was doing. You need to have a certain level of functional fitness, but that doesn't mean that you have to be, a superhero. You don't have to be super fit. You don't have to be in great shape. There are people that work construction and, truck drivers and different, there's different kinds of folks that are in all different kind of shape that work hard for a living, and they can get out and work all day long, maybe working road construction, maybe working, building construction, landscapers, all that kind of stuff. But you see these guys and they're used to working hard all day, you know what I'm saying? But they're not necessarily in the best, physical fitness shape. And you don't have to be. That's the thing, is you just need to be able to do the tasks that you need to be able to do to stay alive. So cutting firewood, splitting firewood, digging, doing carpentry skills, that kind of stuff, gathering firewood. I mean, hunting, all those kinds of things. As long as you can actually do those things, and that's what's going to affect your ability to survive. You can carry a pack, can you carry a pack? Can you walk a long ways? Those kind of things are the things you need to be able to do. You don't have to look like a supermodel, to be able to do those things. So it's a contributing factor, All right, let me catch up in the, see if I missed anything. Again, I'm just looking for all the ones that are all in caps. Dad on YouTube says, you can look like Roy, Big Country, Nelson, and still get it done. That's exactly my point. You absolutely can. Okay. All right, so the next contributing factor is your ability to provide first aid and trauma care. So, knowing some first aid skills, knowing how to treat those injuries in an improvised situation where you don't have a first aid kit, and just having a first aid kit, and a trauma kit, and having those materials available. Those are all contributing factors. Let's see, another contributing factor is your preparedness level. What gear do you have? What equipment? What food do you have stocked away? What water do you have stocked away? What sanitation stuff? Again, not a primary factor, but it is a contributing factor, and it definitely makes things easier if you have some of that stuff set back. Okay, another contributing factor is your ability to provide for your own security. Do you have weapons for self-defense? Have you trained your family members? Do you have group members who know how to pull security and stuff like that? That's really important. Depending on the situation, it might not be that big a deal. If you're further out in a more rural area and you don't have anybody within, 5, 6, 8, 10 miles, then you probably don't have to worry about it nearly as much as somebody who's closer into the city. So again, it's a contributing factor there. All right, did I miss anybody's questions so far? If I did, here 63 Rat Rod says wild edibles identification. Yes, that's another contributing factor, absolutely. And if you guys think of other things, go ahead and throw them in the comments, and I'll add them here in the video as we're going, because there's probably more than I'm going to hit on my list. Yeah, Tom says, Tom M says, JJ, wilderness first aid course is a good thing to have. I absolutely agree. As a SEER instructor, we were basically trained to the wilderness first responder type level, and I learned a lot of stuff about the first aid and all that kind of stuff, and it was very valuable. Okay, let me see. Let me find out where I'm at on my list here. Okay, this is another contributing factor. I'll get your question here in a second. Savage survival. is your ability to improvise and adapt. This is a huge one, man. If you can have the ability to improvise, different equipment that you need, take one thing and make it into something else that's useful. If you can fix old stuff and make it, useful for the situation now, or combine different kinds of equipment to make something that actually, works for your situation, man, that's super helpful in your ability to be able to affect your survival. So let's see, Savage Survival says, do you cache things in case your preps get confiscated or taken? So it's a pretty good idea to do that. And I know I'm not directly answering your question. It's a pretty good idea to do that. Not having all of your preps in one basket, so to speak, all your eggs in one basket is a good idea. But I'll just kind of leave it at that. And there's a lot of other ways to cache stuff than just burying things out in the national forest or whatever the case may be. You could have stuff at friend's house. You can have stuff in a little mini storage locker. It just really all depends on what your bug out plans are and where you want to have them. You can have some stuff in your barn and some stuff in your house. You could have some stuff buried on your property somewhere where nobody would really know to look there or something like that. So, there's a lot of ways to cache, and I definitely do recommend it. Okay, let me see if I missed anything. Hey, Bumblebee Junction, thanks for dropping in. Jimmy Rant says, I worry about weather since I live in Colorado. That'll be a factor. Absolutely, it will be. I was on the list earlier. It's a big one. Who's your archer? Survival. So survival training just gives one confidence. Yeah, it does give you confidence, but it also gives you experience. It also gives you experience in knowing how to build a fire when the wood's wet, or how to build a fire when it's raining and snowing and stuff like that. And, you've actually done those things before. It makes it a whole lot easier when you're having to do it, for your real survival, if that makes sense. So, okay, let me see if I miss anything. Yeah, improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's right. Cryptocognomen. I still don't know how to say that right. But audio isn't working at all. Sorry about that, Jack. It might be because you have a bad internet connection. Sometimes that'll happen. Or my internet connection may have gone bad too at some point. Hard to say. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get back to it. Let's see here. Okay, we had ability to improvise and adapt. Here's another important one, that's really, a lot of people don't understand how much this will actually affect your ability to survive, but it's your ability to work with other people while under stress. Not just work with other people in good times, but when you're dehydrated, when you're tired, when you're grumpy and you're hungry and you're, pissed off because your house just burned down or whatever the case may be, being able to work with people pleasantly in those kinds of situations under heavy stress is a really important contributing factor. It makes all the difference in the world. And right along with that one is your ability to deal with stress internally. And maybe you have some sort of external outlet. Maybe you like to hit the heavy bag and box, or maybe you like to go shoot, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Maybe you just like to go fishing, but whatever. But dealing with stress on your own, where it doesn't affect other people, is a huge deal. So, all right, take it easy, Jack. Sorry you can't hear. My bad. Are you guys hearing me? Is everybody else hearing me, or is it just Jack? Maybe if somebody could put me in the comments, let me know. Savage Survival, your ability to let your pride go. That's another great way of talking about how to, work in, in a group, for sure. Absolutely. Okay. And thank you. And let's see. Here's another one, another big one that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time talking about. It's not real sexy or anything like that, but it's important. How much sleep do you get? Your ability to be able to get a good night's sleep is critical to your survival. And this is one of the things. This is one of the things that lone wolf type situation is just not going to go well. And that's because if you can't get sleep, you're not going to last very long at all. You know, I mean, a couple of weeks, man, that's about all you can do without having a good night's sleep. And you know, in a real violent, without rule of law situation, who's going to watch your six? You know, I mean, you're gonna trade off in shifts or what? You need at least one partner. I'd try to have more than that though. Okay, this one's kind of funny one. It's kind of funny, but it's actually pretty serious, and it's actually very relative in a long-term situation, and that is your ability to procreate. Your ability to have sex and have babies and continue on the line. That's a huge factor. You know, that's a huge factor in your ability to carry on long term. You know, people back in the you know, in the olden days, they had a lot of kids, and the reason they had a lot of kids is because after about 5-6 years after you raise them up, they can start doing a lot of work for you. You know, they start getting a little bit older, another 10 years, 15 years. They're multiplying your workforce, and it's making your ability to survive even better long term. We're thinking, you know, seriously long term, but you know, it makes a difference. So, okay, this one we touched on a little bit earlier. I think it was Savage Survival or one of the guys. Thank you, Kip, for letting me know you could hear me. Kanzi, yeah, STDs and SHTF could be a problem. So, you know, you got to be careful about all that stuff. Your ability to communicate and gather intelligence, both locally and externally. You know, your ability to communicate within a group, and your ability to communicate within your neighborhood, within your city, within your county. Again, having, you know, I forget who it was that was talking about it, but having the ability to, you know, do ham radio and different things like that. That's really important. It's a really important deal. Okay. And setting up an intelligence network and setting up the ability to be able to talk with other groups, other counties in the area, that can also be important too. You know, if you have raiders and those kind of things, you know, people coming and they can give you an early warning. You can give them an early warning. You know, you can that kind of stuff. It really, really helps in a total grid down type situation, and it also saves saves fuel. You don't have to drive certain places and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a really important deal. Okay, so this one is pretty specific, but it's your ability to meet violence with overwhelming violence. This is something that a lot of people, you know, they say that. They say that, I was just laughing at one of the comments. All right, I'll comment on it here in a second. They say that sheepdog folks and all that kind of stuff aren't going to be ready enough or willing enough to become violent when they need to become violent. I think it was Hibernian Son, Irish. He was talking about this in a video that he talked about recently, and and I'm not commenting on his whole video because in general I kind of agreed with a lot of stuff that he was saying, but I think that a lot of people are and will be ready to meet violence with overwhelming violence when they need to, simply because they're going to be willing to do whatever it takes to protect their family, and they're not going to second guess it in a without rule of law situation. But if you have reservations about that, you need to get that straight in your mind. I know I have, and I'm sure that most other people have too, but it's something to think about. So Dad on YouTube says procreation is bad for sleep. That's funny. Kanzi says biggest fear is dental care if in SHTF. Yeah, it's important, man. Having a dentist in your group would be great. Let's see. Kids are always a liability, though we love them. Well, they're Samsung said this. They're a liability to a point, but they're also very useful. You know, kids as young as 5 years old or so can do a lot of tasks around camp that are very helpful if you teach them the right way. You know, and even a bug-in type situation and stuff. You just have to understand their limitations and that kind of thing. But as they get older, you can most certainly put them to use and put them to work, you know, to where they can become an asset, not just a liability. Okay, sorry, I'm getting behind in the comments, so let me try to okay, SPJ says, I wish that I was comfortable enough to get with my neighbors about prepping. So, you know, it's a hard subject to talk about, and a lot of people always, you know, worry about OPSEC and all that kind of stuff, and OPSEC is important to a certain degree. I wouldn't just invite them in and show them all your stuff or anything like that, but you know, you can do things to just bring up you know, topics of conversation that can kind of get them on board with prepping without really telling them that you're a prepper. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can say, talk to them about Hurricane Harvey, you know, and man, I wonder, you know, what those people are going to do if they don't have any food and the stores are completely bare. Maybe it's a good idea if we should go and get some food and put some back. What do you think? You know, just little questions like that don't say, you don't have to go into I'm full bore prepping, all this kind of stuff. But maybe one day you talk to them about, hey, we're going to go to the firing range. You know, we're going to go practice shooting. We've got a couple rifles. Would you guys like to come out? Little things like that, you know. I mean, you don't have to drop your drawers and show them everything all at once, you know. But you can just kind of little bits and pieces here and there, and hopefully that will get them to get on board and then talk with you more about it as you go, and you can build trust slowly and stuff. So that would be my recommendation. It all depends, though. It all depends on your neighbors, where you live. I mean, it's you know, it's hard to say. I'll just remind you guys, if you have anything that you'd like to ask me or you'd like me to read it, and put it in all caps so I can pick it out a little easier in the chat if you don't mind. Take it easy, Who's Your Archer? Thank you for watching. And Jimmy Rant says, if you have 11 men, you're a dentist. No, thank you. Okay, let me see. Never underestimate the power of child labor. That's right. All right, I'm going to try to get caught up real quick. Jimmy Rant says, are we vulnerable for talking about prepping on social media? No. Okay, this is another one that I was going to do a video on. So there's a lot of people that I really probably should save this for another video, because this is one of these things that it drives me nuts. They're like, oh, I know I'm already on a list. My name's already on a watch list, all this kind of stuff. Bullshit. Total bullshit. I've worked in the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. I worked there for 5 years. I know how all the watch listing works and all that kind of stuff, and I am here to tell you unequivocally, just because you are a prepper, you are not on any kind of watch list. If you think you are, you're mistaken. Period. End of story. You want to talk about social media, you want to talk about prepping on social media, all that kind of stuff, you are totally fine to do so. Completely, 100% and totally fine to do so. I guarantee you. The government has no interest in preppers. As a matter of fact, they're glad, because people who are able to be prepared, they don't have to rely on you. You know, you don't have to rely on them, I should say. Why do you think FEMA has the ready.gov site where it talks about how to be prepared and how to, you know, stock up food and all this kind of stuff? They want you to be prepared, okay? You don't have to worry about talking about prepping on social media and stuff like that at all. Like I said, I could get on my soapbox about this and talk for probably an hour about all the reasons why it's not a problem. And I'll just give you just one quick, very broad kind of thing. And I'm not going to get into any details because I can't, because it was classified and stuff. But there was this case that I was working once, and we were monitoring a legitimate, no kidding, subject of a case, and for very good reasons. And it took 5 guys full time, about a year and a half, to go through all the data on just 90 days. So it's so easy to generate so much information that they could be collecting all the stuff in the world, which they're not, but they could be. And there's no possible way that they could ever sift through it to use it. So it's just, there's a million more reasons why it's not important, but you really don't have any worries about talking about prepping on social media. Now, if you're being stupid about it and you're talking about you're giving away your home location, if you have your device settings set to where it uses the GPS and you get automatically registered or checked in whenever you go somewhere or something like that, and you're not being smart from an OPSEC perspective in that way, then yes, you are putting yourself at risk, but it's not from the government side of things. It's from other preppers who would be willing to come and do you harm. So I do highly recommend that people make sure they check all the settings on all their social media devices and make sure that the GPS functions are all, and the location functions are all turned off completely, if that makes sense. Okay, I went off on a little soapbox there, so hopefully that answers your question, Jimmy Rants. You know, that's just my perspective, but all right. Jody Mandelis, hey, I'm glad to see you join me, and we need to get together one of these days here soon. She says, this is a great point. I just wanted to read it to you guys. She's talking about talking with your neighbors and stuff like that. And she says, it's an act of compassion to discuss it with them. So they won't be like most in a disaster. Who knows, maybe they'll end up helping you. That's a very, very good point, and it is completely spot on. The more your neighbors that are prepping, the more they're into it, the more they know about it, the more they become, aware about it, the better off you're going to be in the long run. A lot of people think the exact opposite, and they talk about, they say you can't talk to anybody and you can't tell anybody and all this kind of stuff. Well, you're only hurting yourself. If you present it in a logical fashion and, you break it kind of slowly like we were talking about, there's nothing wrong with letting people know that you're a self-reliant person who isn't going to have to rely on the government. Not at all. Okay, let's see. Looking for all those all caps comments. Wait, oh, so hard to keep up in this chat. Samsung says, woo, tinfoil hat's off. Okay. Yeah, Buffy will. He says, unwrap the top 4 layers of the tinfoil hat. The government has bigger problems than you. And that's exactly right. So let me give you another example, and I'll try to move on here, because so the FBI is kind of like the big bad guy that everybody's worried about, right? And I'll say another comment on DHS too. In Omaha, in the Omaha division, I think there were 54 agents in Omaha. And that is all of Nebraska and all of Iowa. 54 people. 54. That's it. There's no possible way that they could even, that they could monitor, that they could run cases on even, a tenth of 1% of preppers. You know what I mean? It's just ludicrous. It's just totally ludicrous that anybody would worry about the government and you being a self-reliant individual. It's just silly. Here's the other thing, that I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I'll have an Audible link in the description below if you guys like audiobooks. If you sign up, you'll get a free audiobook and I think 30 days free or something like that. But in the audiobooks, they always talk about DHS. DHS is the big bad guy. DHS, you got to watch out for DHS. So it is really kind of silly, because I don't know why people don't understand this. DHS was nothing more than 22 federal agencies that were combined to fall under a hierarchy similar to like the Department of Defense. There's no new agency. The only new positions they have a few internal positions for internal, like doing internal investigations. They have some headquarters positions and stuff like that. But there's no person who is a DHS agent. It doesn't exist. They're agents of the formerly, the other 22 agencies that were out there. You know, TSA, you know, is one. Federal Air Marshals, Customs and Border Protection, you know, ICE, you know, inspections, or excuse me, immigrations, customs enforcement. You know, those different agencies, that's all they are. They still have their same mission. There's no group of people who is a DHS agent. They don't exist. So anyway, I need to get back to the topic at hand. Bumblebee Junction says, what type of things will get you put on a list? What should we be doing? What should we avoid doing? That's a great question. So here's the bottom line. You don't get put on a list unless you're the active subject of an investigation, period. So if you're not doing anything illegal, then you got nothing to worry about. If you know, and even if you're subject of investigation, you still may not be put on there. You just follow the law. I mean, if you're not doing anything wrong, nobody's going to care. I mean, they just don't have any interest. So, you know, I mean, I would just say that in general, just don't be breaking any laws. I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world, man. I mean, be a good citizen, you know, and that's it. I mean, there's really no stellar thing to this at all, you know. I mean, if you're associating with people who are doing bad things, if you're associating with people who have, you know, are experimenting with explosives or toying with illegal guns, you know, maybe automatic weapons and things like that. If you know people who have put together bomb components like just pipe bombs, you know, to blow stumps, you know, or whatever, that kind of stuff, that'll get you hemmed up because you're associated with, you know, people who might be under investigation, you know. People have a willingness, when you're doing something illegal, people have a willingness to tell authorities about it. That's why people get caught, because other people see what they're doing and they tell the authorities, and then they go and look into it. And sure enough, this jackass is, you know, building bombs or building, you know, pipe bombs to blow up a stump or whatever the case may be. And he just happens to be a prepper. So, you know, he thinks, oh, they're targeting me because I'm a prepper. Well, no, jackass, it's because Bill over here saw that you were putting together pipe bombs illegally, and he told the authorities about it. You know, it had nothing to do with you being a prepper. You know, so anyway, that's not real. No, that's not a real case or anything. It's just a for example. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Just be a good citizen. You don't have to worry about it. What does home? Okay, so Kip, let me see. Okay, man, I'm way behind. Sorry about this, guys. I already answered the Robert B. I already answered the thing about North Korea. Okay. Okay. Here's another one. Gosh, you guys, these are all lists of things that I wanted to do videos about, but I'll just touch on it here. Jimmy Rant says, can the government confiscate our foods, guns, and preps during SHTF situation? So the answer is that there are some laws that allow the president to confiscate resources during national emergencies, okay? Those are not targeted towards resources from individuals. What that law is for is so that they can go to food distribution warehouses and things like that and take control of those so that they could ration the food in a realistic way so that people would be able to get it and it doesn't just all get looted or, you know, whatever the case may be. That's an extraordinary circumstance that is almost never used, but it can happen in extreme circumstances. But again, that doesn't mean that they're going to come searching house to house and like, oh, we're going to go find the preppers and take their food. That's the most ludicrous thing in the world. We have 300 million people in this country. I mean, they would be burning more resources just to go find that food than they would to just leave it there. They would actually consume more resources trying to find hidden stashes of food than they would if they just left it there. So there's no concern or no worry. That would be a massive logistical operation to do a house-to-house search just to look for food. It would not be worth the effort for them to go through and do it. It just doesn't make any logical, logistical sense whatsoever. So I'm not worried about it at all. Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to catch up on some of this stuff. Samsung says, can you speak as to hygiene? After all, it's the small things that kill you. Yes, it is. And I have a couple videos on hygiene and stuff like that. What I do is I have like 4 different tubs full of sanitation and hygiene stuff. And what I did is I just went to the dollar store and got a bunch of stuff. You can really, really get up a lot of good stuff for a very reasonable price to be able to affect your ability to stay clean, keep your house clean, keep your environment clean, all that kind of stuff, just by going to dollar store and stocking up on stuff. So that's what I did. Costco probably is kind of the same way, but anyhow, let's see. Just looking for those ones that are all in all caps. Jimmy Rand says, why do my questions make people's blood pressure rise? I mean, well, no, you do, and I'm not upset with you. It's more of something that I see with the prepping community at large, and it drives me nuts. And so I just need to make some videos on it so that you know, just it'll be answered and it'll be out there, and that kind of thing. But okay, Kip Vito says, what does Homeland Security do? So Homeland Security, like I said, they're the agency of the Department of Homeland Security manages 22 other federal agencies. That's all they do. That's all they literally do. And like, here's the other one that gives me too is, oh, the government is stockpiling billions of rounds of ammo. DHS is buying billions of rounds of ammo. No, they're not buying any more ammo than they ever normally did. All that happened is it takes a couple of years for the logistics cycle of the government to play itself out. And they took what their ammo accounts for 22 different federal agencies, and they combined it into one. And so all of a sudden there was this big ammo purchase, and everybody was like, oh my God, they're stockpiling ammo. No, they just put it all into one account. It was previously on 22 separate accounts. So when you combine the 22 accounts, it comes up to the amount that they still normally buy. The government never purchased any more ammo than they ever did. It's the same amount. So anyway, okay. Hopefully that answers the question. Samsung says, be a needle in a pile of needles. And I think he's talking about, basically don't get in trouble. And that's exactly right. Just be a needle in a pile of needles. Okay. Bumblebee Junction said, is it safe to associate with me? Yeah, it's pretty safe. I'm an active federal agent, so I hope it's safe anyway. All right. Okay, Savage Survival says, people are going to be raiding stores first, not armed homeowners. Yeah, that's probably true. Okay, sorry, I get so far behind, I have a hard time keeping up. Okay, Jimmy Rant says, bug in or bug out without rule of law situation and civil unrest. So it all depends, right? I mean, I think as a general rule, I recommend that people stay in place as long as they can. However, there's some caveats with that. Your proximity to the city center in a big urban environment, and I'm talking about a big city, more than, say, 150, 200,000, is probably going to necessitate you leaving sooner if you had to. But it really all depends, though, because you could have a group of neighbors in a small development somewhere that you might be able to shut down the street and set up a pretty secure little area for you and your other 15 other houses in your neighborhood or something. It all depends. I mean, it's just too many variables. But what I always say is I'm an 80-20 guy. 80% of my stuff is basically set towards me staying here at my house and not having to leave. 20%, bug out bags for every member of my family. We have a bug out plan that follows the PACE acronym: primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And I think that's how you should always approach it. And for example, if you're going to leave, you're going to take the truck and the trailer and the other car filled with stuff, and if that doesn't work, if for whatever reason the cars break down, then you're going to break out the bicycles and the bicycle trailers and fill those with stuff in your backpacks. And if that doesn't work, then you get, a wheelbarrow and use that, or, that kind of thing. So, you do it in kind of different stages or whatever, but hopefully that makes sense. As a general rule, I would recommend to people, if you have the ability to find a more secure location to live now before problems ever happen, then you should do that. That's why I no longer live in DC. We live out here in Cheyenne now, and it's way safer. I mean, way safer out here than it was in DC. So, okay, let's see. Let me go back looking for all those capitalized comments. Dale James says, can you purify water if it has chemicals in it, such as gas and oil? So that's a good question. The best thing to do, my understanding is you would probably want to distill it first. Basically have one container with the water in it and a fire underneath it, and then have that capped off, and then a small tube coming out kind of in a long arc, or in coils, whatever the case, whatever you can do. And you basically boil that water, the steam comes off of it, and then you have the water at the end that's pretty good. I would still recommend filtering it through an activated charcoal filter, and then you should be good. But that's all going to be on taste. You'll be able to taste gas or chemicals or something like that if it's in the water. So, okay. Okay, so Jody talks a little bit. Jody Mandela says, what about the new policy on police buying military equipment such as rocket launchers in light of the nurse being arrested? Okay, so that's a good one. So there's a couple of trends that have happened in the last 40 years or so. Crime has done this, right? It's gone down in a statistical slope, where crime is actually pretty low. And what has happened during those 40 years is military departments have started to learn and employ some military tactics with SWAT teams and stuff like that. And that also has led to fewer officer deaths and things of that nature. I don't personally worry too much about the militarization of local police, because generally speaking, a police department might have one armored vehicle, and a few special weapons and stuff like that. And that isn't enough to do anything. It's enough for a localized operation, like when you have a hostage being held or something like that, and they need to get a SWAT team close to the house without being shot, different things like that. But it's not enough to take over the city, So I generally don't worry too much about those kinds of things, because I'm a law enforcement officer myself, you guys know that. So most law enforcement officers are good guys who are doing the right thing for the right reason. That nurse video that you're talking about, I saw that, and that dude was a jackass, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. That he deserves whatever he gets, because, if you ask me, there's two ways to get blood, and this is just talking about that incident: through consent or through a warrant. And if you don't have either one of those, you shouldn't be asking for blood. And some of the stuff I saw said that he was asking for blood from a victim, which that doesn't even make any sense to me. So I don't even know what was going on with that. Police force is a microcosm of society. There are bad cops and there are good cops, but I think just like society, the overwhelming majority of them are good people. And I think, that that's the case with society as well as with cops. So, all right. Let me see here. I got more questions piling up. I'm just not going to get done with this video ever. Axe 609 says, is it better to be a part of your community after SHTF or stay away from the neighbors? So we were talking about this a little bit earlier, Axe. I always think it's best to talk with your neighbors and try to get them. You don't have to tell them about all your preps necessarily, but try to get them on the mindset of prepping. Try to get them to be as prepared as possible, because the more prepared they are, then the less you're going to have to be helping them if something happens, and the more capable they will be able to help themselves and to help their other neighbors. So I won't touch on that too much because we kind of already covered that a little bit. Okay. Kip Vito says, is it okay if my bug out bags are on wheels? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it depends on what your plan is, but I mean, you know, one of the best things for making bug out a little easier is one of those jogging strollers with the huge wheels. That's a great thing. You know, you can throw your pack, a big old heavy pack, inside of one of them 3-wheeled strollers, and I mean, you could take that a lot of places and carry a lot of weight. You know, so absolutely, I wouldn't have any problem with that. Jimmy Rant says he was in Cheyenne 2 weeks ago and he saw the worst rainstorm ever. Yeah, we do have some pretty bad storms come through. Let's see. Crypto Cosmoman says, speaking of Cheyenne, there was an earthquake around Yellowstone yesterday or something, wasn't there? Yeah, there's seismic activity all the time up there. It's a pretty regular thing, I think. Okay, I'm finally getting towards the bottom here. Wildeye says the patient was a police officer. I guess he's talking about that nurse thing. That's crazy. I didn't know that. All right. Oh no, Jimmy Rants, are you kidding me? Are there FEMA camps? I mean, the ones preppers say are death camps. Okay, I have a video on that, so go check that video out, and that'll answer it. But you know, bottom line is no. Savage Survival says, "How many trolls do you encounter on YouTube? They're horrible." You know, I don't get that many trolls. I get probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 a month. You know, it'll say a few things, and I'll delete their comment or ban them from the channel or whatever. But I don't really deal with too many trolls. I think it's honestly because I don't know. I try to say stuff that makes sense, I guess, you know, but okay. All right. Okay, I think I'm caught up now. Let me see if I got any other items on my list, because I got like way off track there. Sleep, procreate, ability to communicate, ability to meet overwhelming violence. We did that. Okay, here's another one. Contributing factor for survival is your ability to understand your survival priorities, and that is risk versus gain, your caloric expenditure versus the reward. You know, for example, if you've got a bunch of sheep, or you know, one sheep, should you build a pen for that one sheep or just tie it off to a fence post somewhere? You know, just thinking about how you're going to do things in a logical way so that you're making the best use of your calories in a survival situation. Some people, I've seen a lot of people who talk about building natural shelters. This cracks me up, dude. You know, a natural shelter, like a big ass lean-to or whatever, that'll hold like 4 people or whatever, that takes a lot of calories to build, when you could really just trim a few branches under a big ass pine tree and just sleep right up under the pine tree and it'd be totally fine, you know, especially if it's not raining or there's no snow or whatever the case may be. So, you know, thinking about your survival priorities and your caloric intake is a big contributing factor. Okay. Understanding your weaknesses and your limitations. This is another one. You know, you might be in the best shape in the world. You might be a great, outstanding fitness guy, all that kind of stuff. But if you don't understand your weaknesses and your limitations, you're going to find yourself in a hurting situation really quick. You got to know when it's important to ask other people for help and when it's important to get other people who are good at certain jobs to do those jobs, and you may not even try. You know, maybe you're terrible at starting a bow and drill fire, and that's the only method you have to start a fire. And this guy over here, he knows it. He's good at it. Have him do it. There's no point in you trying for 3 hours, you know, burning all those calories if you could do it in 10 minutes. Okay, your ability to hunt, fish, trap, grow, and forage for food. All of them. You can't do just one. You got to do all of them. You got to hunt, you got to fish, you got to trap, and you got to forage, and you got to grow it. Every single one of them. And I'm almost done here, and then I will catch up with the comments. And the last two are your ability to preserve food. Smoking, canning, salting, drying, whatever the case may be. You go out and you work hard for all that food, you bring it back, you got to know how to be able to store it, to be able to use it later. That's really important. And last but not least on my list is your ability to purify water and maintain good personal hygiene and sanitation. I think we talked a little bit about that later. So let me know in the comments, you guys, in the chat here, what are some other contributing factors that I missed? I mean, I think I got the big ones anyway, but I could be wrong. So let me go back and catch up in the chat here. Okay. I hate what happened to Houston. Yeah, me too, man. You guys definitely be praying for the folks in Houston. If you can donate, then definitely help donate, to the cause, to Red Cross or whatever charity you think is most appropriate, because they're definitely going to need help. Okay. Jimmy Rand says you could get rich opening up a prepper training camp. Thank you. I've thought about doing like consulting and that kind of stuff, but I don't know that too many people really have money that they want to spend on that kind of stuff. But I'm always here. You guys can email me with your questions at realitysurvival@gmail.com. I'll be happy to talk with you. Or if you ever wanted to, we could set up just a chat and just talk, on a Google chat. We could stream it on the channel if you want. We could do it live, or we could just do it private, whatever. I'm happy to help folks out. Let's see. This is a good one. Crypto Kajman says, reality survival is real survival is all about trying to be lazy with priorities. And that's exactly right. That's absolutely right. Okay. Savage Survival says, ability to be quiet, low-key, sense sounds, light control. Yeah, that's another good one. Your ability to be able to evade if and when it's necessary. I would totally agree with that. It's also important for hunting and that kind of thing. Your ability to provide security. I kind of touched on that one. Bumblebee Junction says the ability to delegate. Yep, absolutely. Organize, we talked about that one, definitely. Improvise, adapt, and overcome, we talked about that one too. Bumblebee Junction, that might have been just before you jumped in, I'm not sure. Daniel Bem says stored fuel. Yeah, if you're talking about storing fuel, that is important, having fuel stored and having some prepped, I think that's a smart way to do it. So Buffy Woe says, if veteran, look into Team Rubicon, Vet Emergency Response Org. I haven't heard of that. Let's check that out. Is there like a website or something that goes along with that, or I'm not sure exactly what that is. Hupple's Cat says, the ability not to die. Not dying is crucial. Yes, that's a primary factor. I agree with you. That's the primary factor. Just the ability to stay alive. At the OODA loop. Yep, that's a good one. All right. Wildeye says, I'm purposely keeping extra 30 pounds. Well, that's not exactly what I was talking about, but hey, if that's what you want, whatever. As long as you're functionally fit. You guys are killing me right now. Bumblebee Junction says the ability to hump 5 miles on a plate carrier with sensitive nipples. Yes, that was out loud. You typed that out loud, Bumblebee Junction. All right. All right, guys. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Went a little longer than I was anticipating. I apologize about that. I just kind of got pulled off. I think it was Jimmy Rants that got me sidetracked so much. But anyway, you guys are cracking me up in the comments. As always, guys, I definitely appreciate it when you use the Amazon link in the description of my videos. If you're doing Amazon shopping, It does not cost you any more to use that link, and it really helps out our channel a whole lot. Like I've told folks recently, we make more off of the Amazon channel than we do from YouTube anymore. You know, YouTube doesn't pay out a whole lot. I haven't had too many issues with demonetizing, but just the number of ads they run is not that great. So if you can use the Amazon thing and share and like my videos, and that definitely helps a whole bunch. I do appreciate it. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys. And I'll stay in the chat here for a little bit if you guys got any other questions. But other than that, I'm going to sign off here pretty quick. Going once. Going twice. Thank you, Bumblebee. Appreciate it. It was a good time doing this. All right. I'll see you guys later.